Let's begin with this. I'd like you to first click on this link and watch the video, and then after you finish watching, reflect in your notes on what your thoughts are. So you might have come across few things that you heard in the video that might have made you question or think it's crazy or it's unbelievable. And yeah, I get that, because that's what parapsychology, or the field of psychology that focuses on these aspects of perception, or extrasensory perception, actually talk about, and most often we are skeptical about it. So we're going to look today at, now that you've watched this, I want you to watch these two as continuation of those documentaries to see what real life people are sharing about the phenomenon of parapsychology, the field that actually works to find out what's the explanation that people have, or the prevalence of such cases in human life. So you would see that it is definitely a scientific field of study that uses scientific research to examine different out of ordinary perceptions. So we will see that in the video you would have heard about extrasensory perception, you would have heard about different abilities that together are called as extrasensory perceptions. Those are telepathy, right? I think of someone and somebody, the same person calls, or I say something that the other person is thinking. Clairvoyance or remote viewing, to be able to see something that is happening in the other part of the world. And precognition, which most often we hear that as prophesying, right? So the ability to see what's going to happen in the future. So these are different types of extrasensory perceptions. So researchers have questioned this so much in recent years, and for a long time now. And sometimes it's just mere coincidence or chance, or it's also said that it could be just a probability, right? So if I have you think about what I'm thinking, and I pick a number out of 1 to 10, and I'm going to think hard, and I tell you, okay, think about what I am thinking and tell if what I'm thinking is the number 7, right? Out of 1 to 10. So I'm sure out of a class of 30, I would have at least 1/3 of the class who would have got number 7 as a number that I'm thinking. So does that mean they're all psychic? Well, probably not. But here's another trick to kind of think about it, okay? I will be showing you a series of cards. I want you to look at them and pick just one and concentrate on one after you pick it, okay? So pick one. Anything that your mind settles on, keep looking at it, just look at that, concentrate on that, right? So now I want you to look at the cards. I'm going to show it again, and I want you to know that I'm willing to bet and say that the card that you probably thought is missing here. Can you look and see if the card is here? Well, what do you think happened? You might probably come up with different explanations, but, well, let me tell you that this is not anything to do with the psychic power or any other extra supernatural ability demonstrated here. It's just a trick. But a lot of us think even what psychics do, or anything that was presented in the video, are all tricks, but there are evidences that it's not. So that's what keeps us going in this field, to explore much more and come up with explanations. This all said, being on one side, I'm actually interested in having you all focus on what's called hallucinations and delusions. So you all probably have heard of hallucinations, which in simple terms is false perception, and delusion on the other hand is false belief. Delusion is in other terms, is misinterpretation of perception and our experiences. So the distinction between a delusion and a strongly held idea is sometimes difficult to make, and it depends in part on the degree of conviction in which the belief is held, despite clear contradictory evidence regarding its veracity. So, the delusional disorder, or which was previously called as paranoid disorder, is a type of serious mental illness called psychosis, in which a person cannot tell what is real from what is imagined. There are different types: persecutory delusion, where a person strongly believes that someone is after them and is trying to harm them. Erotomatic delusion is when people think that, or really believe that someone, most often someone in the position of power or a celebrity, is in love with them, is attracted even to them, even in case of no evidence to support it. And somatic delusion is when a person may just have a feeling that they do not have right hand when they do a very functional one, but they strongly believe that something strange condition has come about where their hand doesn't work. So in that, not just hand, I mean any kind of illness. So that's somatic or body, right? And grandiose is the one that I've commonly worked with, which is grandiose, which is when people think that they really have supernatural ability and they are superior genius, have got talent and are rich and wealthy. Those kind of delusions are grandiose delusions. So delusions could be bizarre and they could be non-bizarre too. And you will see that some examples, like when people think that others have operated on them and have um, uh, displaced a different organ inside the body, or have taken some thoughts away from them, or have a GPS chip inserted into the mind and the body without them knowing it. Those are bizarre, right? But there are sometimes delusions that sound so believable, like I feel like my ex-husband is stalking me all the time, right? It's very hard to know if it's a bizarre one or if it's well, if it's true or a delusion. So that's a time when people who work with them find it very hard to distinguish and know what's really going on. And delusion and hallucination are two different ones. And hallucination is where you experience something the other person finds it very hard to comprehend. So it's estimated that about 70% of people who experience, who are diagnosed with schizophrenia, actually experience hallucination. There are different types: the one where you hear, see, and the one where you smell, and the one where you see movements happen, or some kind of crawling sensation feeling. So those are different types of hallucination. So hallucination, the most common one is auditory. You usually hear sounds, whether familiar sounds or unfamiliar sounds. And it's also important to know that it does not mean if you are just like humming a song, you hear a song in your mind, that you're hallucinating. So it's different. Psychotic disorders are a little different, where it could result because of hallucination could be a result of use of drugs, or a side effect of a medication, or some kind of brain injury, or some biochemical neurochemical activity in your brain. It could also be that you didn't have proper sleep, or just the whole idea of different balance between neurotransmitters in your brain. That could all be reasons why a person can hallucinate. It's different when the hallucination is also because people think has a more closer relationship to religious or supernatural belief systems of individuals of a particular culture, it's very easy to misinterpret that as being hallucination when someone says, I heard God speak, or I can see visions, or I saw an angel. Those are things that in a context would make sense, but if it's looked in isolation, out of context, it's easy to think that someone is struggling with a kind of psychosis. So I would love for you to watch the first link in here. It's the movie Beautiful Minds, a clip from that helps you to know that schizophrenia is a degenerative disorder and how people live, which was earlier considered as being in denial, but now, because of a lot of research and awareness, now we see them and no more call them as people living in denial, rather as people who lack in awareness or insight about their own symptoms. I would love for you to watch the first one and the others that explain life of schizophrenia, people with schizophrenia a little bit more. And the approach that we take in working with them, in addition to providing them with medication, that definitely helps, and providing them with therapy, ongoing therapy where they learn coping skills, is what it's also an approach that's simply called as LEAP, where I really like this approach because it helps us to see them as human instead of, being monstrous, violent, people who are crazy. That's how the world actually saw them for a long time. But now it's important for us to understand that relationships is all that matters. Building that relationship with the person who's having a hard time with their own lives and in their world of reality that they see, it is a struggle for them. So they can easily get isolated and feel like nobody understands them if we try to contradict and tell them that to stop thinking what they're thinking. Well, that's not easy. So to be able to provide them with respect and hear them out and empathize with them. I can only imagine how hard it is for you. I know how hard. I know that if I were in your place, probably I would have been upset too. I would have been become angry as well. So those are things that you could tell someone who's struggling, not just with schizophrenia, but anyone with any kind of mental illness. If you're helping them by providing empathetic responses, to listen, to hear, to respect them, to reassure them that you're going to be with them, that things are going to be okay, and that because they have you and your family and caregivers and caretakers, those are kind of approach, and to say together we'll work on this is something that I would encourage all of us. And think about the world if everybody does that, how great the world would be, right? So that's all the resources I have. You can click on these and watch those and read those. So know that these two chapters help us understand all about sensation perception with physical process and perception that occurs beyond the physical and more like a mental or absence of a physical process. So these are different things for this week. I'll encourage you all to watch and to listen, to write notes, and to engage in conversations with your loved ones.